Welcome to Movie Splain. In today's film recap, you'll be seeing a movie called Collective Invention. Like and subscribe for more. Enjoy the video. The movie begins with a fish man. Well, actually, half fish, half man. The top half is fish and bottom half is man. He appears on a couch in front of a video camera, on a tape in which he is revealing himself to the entire world. Everybody in Korea is shocked, not knowing what to make of it. Some people believe he may be a god, while others believe he is a demon. Either way, a lot of people accept the fish man into society and treat him as a celebrity. But for 5 years since his appearance, the fish man had never been seen again. We cut to a man named Sang-won. We'll call him One, who works at the news station. He is still curious to know where that fish man mutant had disappeared while everyone else has already forgotten about him. One's employer tells him not to waste his time on the story as it won't get him anywhere. One leaves his office. Outside, he meets a girl named Ju Jin, who we'll call Jin. She tells him not to give up and hands him an envelope. But before we see what's inside, One recalls that he had met Jin about 5 years ago when he was working on his first story. We're taken back to that time. One visits the news station for a job as a journalist and reporter. The senior reporter assigns him a task to interview a girl about a story, and if he does a good enough job, he will be hired. One then does some research on the story, which is about a girl claiming that her friend had mutated into a half-man, half-fish. He comes across some websites and forums in which the girl tries to convince people of this, but everyone believes she's being ridiculous and is telling these lies just for a little bit of fame. One goes to the girl's house, with the exterior vandalized and covered in graffiti that's heavily slandering her. He knocks on her door and we see that it's none other than Jin. She tells him that the fish man's name is Park Gu. Park was just an ordinary fella, who one day was given the chance to be a part of something great. Something that would make the world a better place, or so he thought. He was offered a chance to be a lab rat in a test in which he would have to take an experimental drug that could serve as an artificial food substance that could potentially solve world hunger. Park took the medication and then he began to mutate, just his upper half had become scaly and fish-like. The scientists that worked at the hospital then began to conduct strange experiments on him. One day, he was able to escape from that hospital and then rushed directly to the house of Jin. She was his girlfriend at the time, and he had nowhere else to go. But she turns him in, and the scientists capture and take him back to the hospital. She did it for money. Turns out, as much as he loved her, to her he was just a one-night stand, and she'd never be able to stand one night with a fish man. But now she's grown a conscience, and she's worried about him. She takes One to the hospital to prove her claim. They go to the part of the hospital where the experiments are being conducted on Park, making sure to avoid the guards. They get to the room and find that they need a card to enter. Jin then turns on the fire alarm and the doctors run out in a panic, leaving the door open for them to get inside and find Park the fish man. They get him to safety and Jin takes him back and records him telling the world his story before uploading it. The hospital is then criticized by the public for their experiments. One benefits a lot from this story. He is not only hired but promoted to full-time reporter, as was his dream. One is then told not to reveal that he is a reporter as it's now his job to get more information on Park. One goes to Park's house where he aims to make a documentary on him. At the same time, Park's father comes to his house. His dad slaps him. He is mad that Park decided to be a part of this pharmaceutical study and neglected his university studies during that time. One calms Park's dad and proceeds with his documentary. We then see the doctors responsible for the experiments in front of the press. The head doctor, Dr. Baeong, is explaining the experiment and what went wrong. They were trying to solve world hunger, and to do so they had to extract protein from the nucleus of tuna and salmon. Using this protein, they were able to create the drug that would serve as a healthy substitute for food. The experiment was successful in that they were able to create the drug, but then they moved on to human trials to test the drug. Park had taken the drug as a volunteer and suffered a reaction, a mutation that turned him into a platypus. Later, One offers Jin a job. He'll pay her 500 Korean won from his paycheck if she helps him with the story. She agrees and they then go to get some information from Dr. Baeong. They ambush him in a parking lot but he manages to escape. The public soon develops sympathy for Park and his situation. They accept him and he becomes a celebrity among the people. Park also has a case against the hospital. The court comes to a decision in his favor. The hospital is closed for 9 months and the experiments are seized. And Dr. Baeong is sentenced to 4 years in prison. But as the court declares, this case may be reappealed at any point. So Park's lawyer explains to him that he should be very friendly with the public and always have a positive social media presence, as the opposite may cause his case to fall apart. Park's condition gets worse over time. He gets dry and thirsty very quickly and his appearance has become a bother to him. The doctors also do some scans and tests, and deliver the unfortunate news that there's nothing they can do for him. He is very disappointed. Jin decides to help by taking him to a holy place, but instead of offer any healing, the people there begin to beat him severely, accusing him of being a demon. On the way back home, Park's dad and Jin begin to fight, with his dad starting the argument by accusing her of using Park for fame and money. She accuses his father of the same thing. After some time, the news reveals that some new information has come to light. An accusation has been made by one of the nurses that took care of Park during the experiment. She accuses him of assaulting her. Some footage is handed in which shows that he had tickled his pickle in front of the nurse and made her jack him off too. She also says that she has nightmares of being attacked and assaulted by a fish. We find out that these accusations are the work of the same pharmaceutical company that's responsible for the experiment. They are trying to turn the public against Park. They are trying to prove him a corrupt criminal so that their experiments may not be banned and can continue. The people soon turn against Park. They protest in the streets out of anger that he apparently deceived them. One day, Park suddenly leaves. He also left a note behind before he disappeared. One decides to help Park's dad find him. His employers call and tell him to return to the station and to no longer work on the story since Park is no longer a cash-grabbing story. People don't want to hear from or see him anymore. One ignores this and continues his pursuit. He believes Park should have a voice to tell his side to the public. While going home one night, his employer pulls up at his residence and attempts to get him to drop the story. Again, he refuses, so his employer throws all of his work to the ground. One goes to his apartment. There he finds Park in his bathtub. He also sees that Park is injured. He was beaten by some people on the street. He has nowhere else to go, so he came to One's place. The two have a conversation in which One reveals that it's always been his dream to become a successful reporter. He always wanted to give a voice to the oppressed, to help those that needed to be heard but were ignored. The next morning, One goes to meet Park's lawyer, but he witnesses him having a conversation with Dr. Baal. Upon seeing this, he hurries back home, where he finds that Park has hanged himself. He rushes him to the hospital. Park's dad soon arrives. The lawyer also arrives and begins fighting with One. He tells him that he knows he is not just some random documentary maker, but a reporter. One tells him he knows he's been fishing with Dr. Baal behind Park's back. Park's dad quietens the both of them down. He is now tired of this whole mess. He asks the lawyer how much money will be needed to pay the doctor to make this whole thing go away. Park comes out of his room having survived the hanging. Later, he goes to meet Jin. She tells him the truth, that she never liked him and that she was the one that turned him in for the money. He tells her that he knows, and then hands her some money before leaving. He goes back to the hospital where the doctors continue to experiment on him. Dr. Baong has a meeting with one of the company's higher-ups. It is revealed to him that the protein, once safe for human consumption, will be marketed and sold at a very high price, making the company lots of money. He realizes that they weren't funding the project for the good of mankind or just for the sake of helping people. Instead, they just want money. His intention was to help people, but the people that really need the help will be the ones that benefit the least from this project. He realizes he's been working for the wrong people this entire time. Park then dies at the hospital. The doctor turns himself in and reveals the truth, and he is sentenced to 7 years in prison. Park's lawyer becomes a corrupt politician. His father has also retired. We cut to current time, where One takes the envelope he was handed in the beginning of the movie and hands it to Dr. Baal. Inside of it is a picture that was taken when Park's dad had went to the sea to scatter his ashes. In the picture, the fish fingers of Park can be seen. Baong sees this and realizes Park is still alive. He tells One that when he had apologized to Park back then, he promised to turn him back to his human self. But Park didn't want that. He had given up on humanity at that point. He believed that everyone is judgmental, easily deceived, willing to believe anything out of spite. They aren't willing to listen to those that are innocent. They just want to hate somebody without context. And so Park decided to go and live in the sea. The doctor also tells One that Park had made him promise to tell the truth, because there may be a sincere and truthful reporter out there willing to tell his side of the story and give him a voice. After hearing this, One returns to his office, where he sees Jin is waiting for him. She hands him another envelope containing footage. It is a random recorded video of some people enjoying their diving experience, but in the background Park can be seen. He is happy knowing that Park is finally where he wants to be, and is free of all that was bothering him. After this, One leaves his office, fueled by his ultimate goal, to be a reporter that gives the oppressed and weak exposure and a voice that the public will listen to. In the end, we see Park swimming in the vast ocean waters, ready to be shark food at a moment's notice. Thanks for watching.